Going the extra mile was just part of who he was. His passing leaves a significant void, but his legacy of hard work, loyalty, and caring for others will live on in the communities he helped to protect. Also, it was great sadness that I must report Lee Selway, caretaker at Brewster's Avenue Infant and Nursery School. Lee worked at the school from 2018, initially as a contract caretaker, and was then employed by the school in May 2019. Lee never bored of the day-to-day tasks, taking pride in ensuring that the school never ran out of essentials like soap. From these small tasks to larger projects like refurbishment of the nursery. The first summer he worked at the school, his role in school was central to the upkeep of the premises for the staff and children. Lee was well regarded amongst the staff, whom he enjoyed checking in on each day. He remembered important events in people's lives, looked out for them when they were having a difficult time, and shared jokes and stories. He loved to talk about his foreign travel, most recent to Bali in the summer, cars, motorbikes, and of course his family. Lee certainly enjoyed the warmth and sunny days more than the winter cold, but could be found outside whatever the weather. The children fondly recall him using the leaf blower to keep the paths clear in the autumn. I'm sure they would all have really liked to turn. He is much missed at Brewster's Avenue, and on behalf of Peterborough City Council, we extend our deepest condolences to Stuart and Lee's family, friends and colleagues. Their service and memory will not be forgotten. Thank you, Stuart and Lee, for everything. May you both rest in peace. And finally, it is with great sadness that I must also report the death of Mrs. Sylvia Simons, wife of the late Alderman George Simons and former mayor of the city of Peterborough. Sylvia will be remembered for her support of George during his term of office as councillor, and also when he was mayor in 2012-13, during which he raised over £47,000 for their nominated charities. I'd like now to invite all of you to observe 1 minute's silence in memory of Stuart and Sylvia and Lee. Thank you, everybody. Now, please welcome the Mayor's Chaplain, the Very Reverend Father Geoffrey Downey, who will be saying prayers this evening. Which button do you push? Okay. Which button? Yeah, it'd be her best. That's it.
It's always sad to lose friends and colleagues who've served in our great city and worked together, whether we knew them well or not. But the work that they did do lives on in what the city continues to do. And those who serve our city and do so with integrity and commitment do uphold the work and memory of those we've known and who have passed away. And perhaps the work, the thoughts and the concerns that they had for particular areas, particular work in the city can be remembered going forward. Pope Francis often speaks to politicians and civic leaders around the world, and he always emphasizes the common good, care for the environment, and the need to bring hope to all people. To the mayor and municipality of Rome last year, he said, "Authority is fully such when it serves everyone, when it uses its legitimate power to meet the needs of all citizens, particularly the weakest and the least." So let's reflect on those words this evening. Sometimes political fights are necessary, but perhaps we can reflect on those words this evening, whatever our beliefs may be, as we prepare to serve our city and its people. Let us pray. God our Father, you guide all things with wisdom and in love. Accept our prayers for this city and council. In your goodness, watch over those in authority, so that we may enjoy freedom, prosperity, and peace, helped by the prayers of our patron, St. Peter, and all the saints, through Christ our Lord. Amen. And may the blessing of Almighty God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit come down upon you and remain with you always. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, brother. I'm going to Asda now.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. To all present, please ensure that all mobile phones are set to silent. In the event of an evacuation, please exit through the doors at each end of this chamber and follow council staff to the assembly point. As per Council Standing Order 28.1, if you wish to speak, please ensure you raise your hand and you'll be invited to address the meeting. The Mayor has confirmed that when addressing the chamber, he is happy for members to stand or stay seated, whichever you feel most comfortable. All votes will be taken via the electronic voting system. If a recorded vote is requested, this will be taken in the normal way. There is the usual points document on your tables. If you wish to raise a point, please raise the pink document and address the Mayor accordingly, stating which point you are raising. Finally, I would like to remind members that this meeting is being live streamed, so please make sure that when you speak, you are using your microphone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right, agenda item 1. Neil, are there any apologies for absence? No?
Yes, there are, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Irene Walsh is poorly.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if it's on there. Mr. Mayor?
Get it a bit closer.
I've got Councillor Bisbee as well.
Councillor Bisbee.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. The apologies have been given by Councillor Bisbee, Councillor Farid and Councillor Geraghty. Thank you.
Any other apologies? No, thank you very much.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I just come in? That's incorrect. Both Councillor Farouks are here.
Councillor Farouk, sorry.
Both here. Unless there's another one that I don't know about.
I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying.
I said both Councillor Farouks are here. So unless there's another one.
All right.
This is right.
Yeah, Farid.
Farid. We've just said Farid, I think. Yes? Are we there now? Excellent. Are there any declarations of interest from members and officers this evening, which are not already recorded, of course, separately on their individual register of interests? Councillor?
Student at the school. Oh, on agenda item number 6.
Thank you.
Apologies, number 9.
So, Councillor? Councillor Mahmood, yeah?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just need to declare that I'm a governor at Fulbridge School, which is a 4Cs, part of the 4Cs Trust. So that is on the agenda item 9. So I just need to declare that. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. Anything else? No? Okay. I would like to move approval of the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of December 2024. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll take that as agreed then if there are no objections. Okay. I would like to remind everyone of the Mayor's charity events which are due to take place very shortly. And there's the Turkish evening at Tavan on the 13th of February. Tavan's on Lincoln Road, I think near to the Pearl Hotel. And then we have an Italian gourmet evening at the Italian Community Centre on the 28th of February. You're all welcome to both events, and I look forward to seeing you there. I'm sure you will enjoy if you come. Details will be circulated shortly to all councillors, and everyone, I can assure you, will enjoy themselves if you come. Thank you very much. And the money, as you know, goes to our nominated charities, and they are, just in case you don't remember, they are the Cambridgeshire Children's Hospital, Anna's Hope, and the Salvation Army. Now, I understand that Councillor Dennis Jones wishes to make announcements this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we start, may I suggest that item 9A is not likely to go ahead, and either we move it up the agenda or we discuss it earlier to save these good people who've come in to discuss it or to listen before I start my announcements.
I think in view of the circumstances, that's a very good idea, Councillor. New information has come to light, and there is a letter that's been sent to us which all councillors need to read and digest before they make any kind of decision, and I would look to deferring item 9 to the next council meeting, with the consent of the council, of course.
Agreed.
Is that agreed? Nobody objecting?
Item 9A, Mr. Mayor.
It's
facility open. There's something of self-interest here, with an episode of Slow Horses soon to be filmed there, generating useful income for the city. In further good news, I'm delighted to announce that the Council will soon become the first authority in the East of England to launch its very own house project designed to help young care leavers in the city achieve success and independent futures. The facility, based at Chauffeurs Cottage, with an official opening ceremony taking place next Tuesday, we are actively working to improve outcomes for all young people to get the necessary skills and confidence to live independently and develop pathways into education, training and employment. Last week, Peterborough Cathedral launched its Cathedral in Crisis funding campaign, and I'm delighted to see it has raised £40,000 in the first week. Each year, our wonderful cathedral welcomes thousands of visitors for worship events and educational activities, and is our #1 attraction on TripAdvisor. We're pleased to lend our voice to the launch of the campaign and ask everyone to consider visiting its fundraising website to pledge a donation. On the subject of excellent fundraising, I'd like to publicly recognise one of our own, Mohammed Jangir, who has raised £3,275 from the Christmas raffle, something he has done for the past 11 years for a cause dear to my heart, the Peterborough Food Bank. Well done, Jangir. Your line about the meal for two being in the shed, not the shard, due to a typing error, will live long in the memory. Thanks also to everyone who bought a raffle ticket. Finally, residents are invited to remember the suffering and sacrifice of millions of people killed in genocides, including the Holocaust, at a commemoration service to mark Holocaust Memorial Day on Monday, the 27th of January. Details are available on the Council's website. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. And group leaders, I've agreed to extend the time you have to respond to a maximum of 2 minutes. So, Councillor Farouk.
Knock yourselves out.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, it was a pleasure to attend last week the launch of Peterborough Cathedral in Crisis launch, along with council officers and other community leaders. We are pleased that it has already raised nearly £40,000. Mr. Mayor, cathedrals is an important part of our city, and not only it is a place for worship or open for visitors, or it is the #1 attraction for Peterborough, it also does so much for the economy of our city centre and wider city. It is crucial that, as well as the fundraising, it requires and gets the full support from the government and also funding from Church of England. Our closed or reduced opening times of cathedral will have a devastating impact on our city centre and our economy. We simply cannot sit back and watch it decline. Peterborough First welcomes the positive financial settlement from the government, but we need longer-term settlement for 5 to 10 years, which would help to plan the council services for the long term and growth of our city. Working closely with Combined Authority, it is absolutely crucial for the growth of our city that we secure funding from Combined Authority for our capital projects, as more devolution takes place through Combined Authority Mayor's offices. Mr. Mayor, we are also pleased to see the huge response to budget consultation, which ensured the future for Lido for now. We at Peterborough First fiercely opposed it. When it went into budget consultation, we thank the residents for their efforts and their feedback. The responses from residents have been emphatically said no to Labour administration's proposal for closing of Lido, increasing of council tax by 10% and closing other community centres. We welcome the house project, which will serve our care leavers and improve our children's services and create opportunities for care leavers to get necessary skills and independence. It is a step in the right direction. Mr. Mayor, we also commend Mohammed Jangir for his continuous efforts in fundraising for our vulnerable and congratulating him for going above and beyond his duties. Over the years, he has raised thousands of pounds. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll start on a kind of positive but sad note, as you did yourself, having attended Sylvia Simon's funeral today, and of course George just a couple of weeks ago. Would have been nice to see more members there, given their standing within the council. No matter, they got a good send-off, and I was privileged and pleased to be a part of that, as were many on this side of the new chamber. Anyway, it's great to hear Dennis Jones talking about growth and positivity of the city. It sounds like you've read my script as well from about a year ago. So it's really good that you're carrying on the great work we started in improving the city and our lot in terms of for the residents. Recycling. That's what Labour do with all our policies. And on the Lido, it was sink or swim, I'm afraid, for the administration. So, of course, everybody's quite right to claim that the FSWG, Financial Sustainability Working Group, all were appalled at the suggestion. But may I make one warning to the public and members? Look at the detail. That was a red herring. So the Lido is a red herring. Look at what else is in the budget. Look closely at that. Otherwise, it'll slip through again. And we're, of course, supporting the cathedral. I couldn't be there on the morning, but I've telephoned Chris Dallaston and said I'll do whatever we can through my networks and sources, even to providing a free radio campaign for them. So also, Jangir does a great job. He's fantastic, and well done to him. And finally, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to, if I was Peters and Lee, I'd start singing the song from 1976, Welcome Home, to John Howard. Who has decided to, by the way, you've got to be a certain age, who has decided to rejoin the Conservative group. And we said at the time, you'll all recall, we didn't want him to leave and he'd be welcome back. So nothing has changed and we welcome him back. And we intend to regrow our brand, as they say, but we're not revealing any policies.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are some here that would be critical of our current government, but we should at least give them kudos for listening to local government, and we welcome the new enhanced local funding settlement. The re-establishment of family hubs is also saluted. They should never have been cut in the first place. It is good to see the plans for the house project progress, and we look forward to seeing some positive outcomes from this much-needed facility. Congratulations to Mohammed Jangir for another successful fundraiser, a shining example of council staff going above and beyond for our community. I have a few announcements of my own, as something I normally do. Just before Christmas, one of our Aragon tree team suffered a significant cardiac arrest. Thankfully, his colleagues were first aid trained and were able to respond quickly and gave him CPR until the ambulance arrived, who defibrillated him on site and rushed him to Patworth Hospital, being released home 6 days later on Boxing Day. The amazing response from our staff who administered CPR to their colleague absolutely saved his life, and apparently he is at home now resting and is recovering well. So far this winter, the Aragon Tea Team has planted over 1,600 trees, and they're about to commence planting 3 new mini forests across the city. Peterborough Museum has achieved an award for volunteering access, and I'm going to struggle on this one, for the Peterborough Archaeological Archive Enhancement Project. The panel of judges felt the project was a great example of how extensive projects can be achieved by volunteers, especially when provided with the appropriate funding and staff support. The output was considerable, along with the number of volunteers engaged with and the establishment of continued working groups. Since April, the museum has 117 volunteers completing 3,702 hours, the highest volunteer ever, full stop.
Thank you, well done. I'll give you a prize for that. Councillor Day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Greens welcome the local funding settlement news from government. An uplift of 2 million and additional money for tackling homelessness and supporting social care has been desperately needed for a long time. Greens would push even further for taxes on the super rich to invest in our public services, to ensure that not only our Lido, but also our museums and libraries can remain open. Oxfam suggests that billionaire wealth surged by 2 trillion in 2024, 3 times faster than the year before. whilst the number of people living in poverty has barely changed since 1990. Greens, like Oxfam, believe that the richest people and corporations should be paying their fair share. The Greens have contributed fully to the FSWG budget meetings, thanks to Councillor Ali on working hard to push for savings on children's homes and home-to-school transport to be accelerated into the coming budget year. Thanks also to Councillor Skibsted, who has championed and pushed forward on linking Councillor Jones with ideas around making savings on the Lido. Councillor Skibsted, a regular user of the Lido, and many residents who are regular users are very pleased that it will remain open. We believe it is a vital public facility. We welcome the leader's invitation to residents to remember the suffering and sacrifice of millions of people killed in genocides, including the Holocaust. Greens also pray that the ceasefire between Palestine and Israel holds, that hostages and prisoners are safely released, and that this brings an end to the genocide and that a political path to peace is pursued. We know this is an issue that has deeply affected many residents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, we move then to questions on notice by members of the public. There are 3 questions submitted by members of the public to this meeting, and the first question was withdrawn. So we will move to the second question from Mr. Ed Murphy. Mr. Murphy, would you like to ask your question in relation to the latest position concerning the budget and indicative reserves for 25-26?
Yes, I would. I think it's to Councillor Jamil is going to take this question. Just to let you know, we can't actually hear you here, so I couldn't hear what you were saying, Mr. Mayor, but I hope people can hear me. My question was prompted by looking at the last Cabinet papers, and I thank Councillor Jamil because there was a bit more there than we usually get. So going through the Council proposed budget and the predicted updates, I could see that there was a risk that reserves for the next year would be too low, as low as £3 million. I think there were 17 million last year. A big issue and critical element is the level of borrowing, and steps had been taken to try and reduce capital borrowing and the revenue costs required to cover interest payments. Since we have heard that additional capital may be used for the bridge project, I think it's 2 million from the council, and that a capital reset for the sale of the hotel looks unlikely to be achieved before the budget deadline. What is the latest position concerning the budget and indicative reserves for the forthcoming year, 2025-2026? And I thank the announcement earlier on about the £2 million update, so I think we've got a fuller picture now.
Councillor Jamil, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly would, and thank you, Mr. Murphy, for your question. As you will have seen, the draft budget report that was published yesterday for the preparation of our joint scrutiny meeting on the 29th of January, this sets out the reserves and the robustness statement from the Council Section 151 officer, which comments on the adequacy of our reserve balances. At the end of 24-25, this leaves us with around £5 million in the General Fund and just over £14 million in reserves overall. This, as you can imagine, is lower than we would like, but we are continuing to address the in-year position and improvement is being seen. The forecast overspend, which peaked at £11 million earlier in the year, is now down to £5.4 million. The closer we can bring it to zero, the more our reserves will increase. I know the whole organisation is working hard to achieve this, and I am confident that we will get close to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jamil. Mr. Murphy, do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, I do actually. It's an emphasis on the hotel because you didn't really address that one. But thank you for the overall picture and the work that you've been doing. I preempt my supplementary question. I know you were not responsible for things that happened in the past. I know that. But the last time I was here asking about the hotel, it was 2023. And there was an offer on the table that week to buy it, which was reported in the press. Would it have been wise to have accepted that offer, really? Rather than spending another £1 million since then on financing the capital. And do you know what sort of state of repair the hotel is? The building's in. Has anybody been in from property to check it out to make sure it's watertight? Because I assume its value is decreasing because it's been unfinished for so many years.
Councillor Jamil, would you
Thank
like
you,
to
Mr.
respond?
Mayor. I take the point about the question you asked in relation to the hotel. Now, I can't reveal too much because it's commercially sensitive. We are checking, we do check, and there are people who go in to check. And we are working to find a solution to that problem. And there is a lot going on behind the scene. That's all I can say at the moment, simply because it's commercially sensitive. I can't give you a more detailed answer.
Thank you, Councillor Jamil. Councillor Mr. Murphy, you've got another question, I believe.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's again to Councillor Jamil. Again, I'm talking about some historic things which you were not responsible for. But thank you for the update on the hotel initially. You didn't answer whether it was wise not to have taken the offer we had, but not. Anyway, for decades, Bretton Court units have been mostly empty, and the nearby car park has been boarded up by the Bretton Centre. The council did have proposals through its own company to convert the units into a large number of dwellings. Indeed, the proposal was put forward to the planning committee, but I understand nobody actually turned up to put the case to that committee. Had the proposal been agreed and the redevelopment taken place when envisaged, these units would have been available now for many years, helping tackle the misery of homelessness and saving the council the cost of temporary private accommodation and other temporary provision. How much rental income would these units, if completed, have brought in each year to the council's company, and how much would have been saved in the cost of temporary provision each year?
Councillor Jamil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and once again, Mr. Murphy, thank you for your question. Bretton Court is held within Meacham Homes joint venture, so any rental income due would not have come to the council directly. It is also difficult to assess how much more money would have been saved if some or all of the potential accommodation had been used for temporary accommodation. However, it's always cheaper to avoid bed and breakfast accommodation. A planning application for the conversion of 43 flats was refused by the planning committee in 2018, contrary to officer recommendation, and the grounds are on grounds of lack of parking. An application for prior approval for the conversion of 35 flats was granted under delegated powers in 2019, but has since lapsed. A further planning application was approved under delegated powers in 2022 for conversion to 45 flats. This permission is still extant. In addition, the development has been considered as part of a wider regeneration scheme to encompass that and surrounding buildings. This opportunity could therefore lead to additional housing being provided and the enhancement on the area, and this is being worked on by officers at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor, Mr. Murphy, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, thank you, and I'm glad to hear it's being worked on, but perhaps it's being worked on for a long time, but with you in the Cabinet position, perhaps you can put some pressure on it. It's about £4.5 million we would have saved had we converted those units the second time it went to planning. So, you know, this is money that the council could have used. Measham Homes, I don't know whether they still exist or not. Perhaps you could update us on that. Perhaps with all these errors that we've seen and missed opportunities, the council should look back at the errors and mistakes it's made and be a bit more candid and transparent and admit to them and learn some lessons for them. Would you be willing to do that?
I'm trying to work out if that's related to your previous question, but we have been in power since May of 2024. We are learning and we are trying to learn from the mistakes of the past so we don't have to repeat them again. That's the best I can do for you, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Councillor Jamil. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Right, agenda item 7A, petitions from members of the public. Any? No? Thank you. 7B, petitions from members. No. 8A, questions on notice. There have been 5 questions submitted by members this evening to Cabinet members. All questions have been published on the Council website and will be taken as read. From question number 1, from Councillor Anne Shahid. Councillor Jamil, would you like to respond to the question in relation to council tax and those facing financial hardship?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly would. It's important to note that council tax is means tested, which means that any customer, client, resident on low income has the opportunity to reduce the amount they are paying by applying for a reduction under the local council tax support scheme. The council's local scheme awards discounting amount to almost £11 million each year to assist the most financially vulnerable in our city. In addition, a further discretionary support scheme is in place to assist those in hardship and with exceptional circumstances. As a statutory function of the council tax recovery process is prescribed in legislation, which already includes a number of steps taken prior to court action being taken. This includes the issue of up to 3 reminder notices to encourage customers to make contact with the council to resolve any arrears. At every step, the council also signposts customers to a number of debt advice organisations in order to help them deal with both council tax debts and any other debts that may be causing financial difficulties. The breathing space legislation also allows customers to require a suspension of any collection or enforcement action for up to 60 days whilst they seek advice. The council is focused on ensuring customers have the opportunity to resolve any debt without further action being taken, and this is set out in with the documentation they are issued. By increasing the resource in this team, we will enable the council to process bills in a more timely manner, preventing unnecessary delays and allowing residents more time to pay their balance. This will prevent many customers from falling into arrears in the first place. Secondly, it will increase the opportunity for customers to discuss any arrears and to reach a mutually acceptable resolution without it being necessary to take further action. Thirdly, it gives them the opportunity to take appropriate action against the smaller cohort of debtors who are able but unwilling to pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jamil. Councillor Zahid, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, thank you for that comprehensive answer, Councillor Jamil. It's reassuring to know that there are some protocols already in place, potentially, hopefully, to help those more vulnerable residents around this issue. Just a question around whether actually seeking a court order or using debt enforcement officers would be used as a last resort, and do we have any evidence of whether prior use of court orders already or from other local authorities as to the effectiveness of doing this, and that we aren't actually pushing those vulnerable residents further into debt?
Councillor Jamil, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you. Court is a last resort. We don't like doing it, but if people ring us, speak to us, we're always willing to make arrangements. And the second part of your question, I'm going to have to look that up and get you a written answer because offhand I don't know. So I will come back to you on that one.
Thank you.
Happy with that? Then, Councillor Wiggin, you have a question to Councillor Nick Fulburn. Would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Wiggin, Councillor Fulburn? Wherever you are.
I'm over here.
You are.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to respond. Thank you, Councillor Wiggin, for the question. We introduced a trial Article 4 direction to seek to mitigate against the impact of small houses in multiple occupation in specific areas. Although there has been no specific assessment of its impact, the Council has received 17 relevant complaints since its adoption, compared to 6 beforehand. suggesting greater awareness of the issue. Our experienced officers report that anecdotally, it would appear that Article 4 direction has served to curb the conversion of dwelling houses to HMOs across the area. We will, of course, continue to monitor its impact.
Thank you, Councillor Fulbourn. Councillor Wiggin, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. I'm over this side. Yeah, I'd like to thank Councillor Fulbourn for the response to the question and thank him for the information provided. I would agree that anecdotally from my residents and yours as well, Mr. Mayor, as we share a ward, has been positive. We have been successful in opposing planning applications as city councillors and with the parish council where they are not suitable for the locations proposed, and residents have welcomed this. Will the council be looking to extend the initial trial or move to a fuller Article 4 designation across the city, as well as introducing further support for tenants against those that are seen by residents to not be doing so well for our housing stock?
Councillor Fulbourn, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We would like to move forward on this. I personally would like to move forward on this. There are a number of practical considerations that take into effect, so we will continue to monitor and you keep pushing and we'll move it on. But at the moment, there's a number of practical issues we need to resolve first.
Thank you. Now we have a question from Councillor Sandra Bond. Councillor Angus Ellis, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Bond in relation to winter pruning in Gunthorpe?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Sandra Bond. I can confirm that the Council's annual shrub cutting programme is complete in the Gunthorpe ward. If you have any questions or concerns in relation to a particular location within the ward, please feel free to share the details with me after the meeting and I will investigate for you.
Councillor Bond, do you have a supplementary question?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Ellis, for your response. And question 4 is from Councillor Christian Hogg and Councillor Alison Jones. Would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Hogg in relation to match day parking enforcement?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your question, Councillor Hogg. Since October, there have been 10 Peterborough United home games, all of which have had at least 2 dedicated parking officers specifically, and not only covering football match parking. To clarify, officer hours, now having 2 dedicated officers on a match day, results in 8 hours at each match, namely 4 hours per officer. Prior to October, we only had 1 officer, so clearly this has seen a significant increase in officer hours. Officers are tasked with patrolling nearby residential areas, along with car parks and on-street pay and display bays. During this time, officers have issued 74 penalty charge notices compared to 54 in August and September, so clearly having a positive impact. As part of the budget proposals, we plan to increase the number of officers working in our enforcement team, alongside other changes, including introducing a bank of staff who can be called upon for ad hoc or high-profile events, including football matches. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hogg, did you want a supplementary question?
I have to say I'm a little bit confused because when I asked the question in October, I was told that there were 4 officers on duty that day for football, and now we're down to 2. So it doesn't seem to be adding up. And certainly, my experience is that whenever I've seen officers do the football parking, they act as a pair. So I've never seen a situation where there's been only 1 officer doing the football parking. So I wonder if you could maybe go back to officers and double check those figures and then come back to me in writing, please.
Councillor Jones, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. I will do. I will just say we have had some vacancies that we've been short of, and we're currently recruiting for those positions as well. They do part. They don't just all stay together, but I will get current data for you, Councillor Hogg. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor 5 is also from Councillor Christian Hogg. And Councillor Alice Jones, would you like to respond to the question in relation to Armed Forces Day?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hogg. As you're on the Armed Forces Planning Group, you'll no doubt be aware that members of this group agreed to postpone planning of a large-scale event in 2024. A flag was raised to commemorate the start of Armed Forces Week, though. I can confirm that outline plans are now in place for Day of Activities, which is scheduled for Saturday the 21st of June, with the event to be held on Cathedral Square in conjunction with the Cathedral. Councillor Jason McNally, Peterborough City's Armed Forces champion, is now leading a planning group which includes, as you know, cross-party councillors, Armed Forces liaisons, Cathedral representative and officers. This planning group was established to allow each person the opportunity to input ideas and to take responsibility for certain aspects of the planning and organisation of the day. The next meeting of this planning group is scheduled for the 29th of January to move forward with allocations of responsibilities for the group outside of those that will be undertaken by officers. The Day of Activities on Saturday the 21st of June will be followed by the traditional flag raising event for the Armed Forces on Monday the 23rd of June, which will be planned as usual by the executive and members team and will be led by the Mayor of Peterborough. There are also plans for civic events to take place to commemorate both VE Day on the 8th of May and VJ Day on the 15th of August. Again, both of these events will be organised by the executive and members team and will be led by the Mayor of Peterborough. Further information and invitations for these events will be circulated to councillors in due course to enable all of us to attend and show our support for these very important events. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hogg, do you have a supplementary question?
No, I'm fine with that answer. Thank you very much, and thank the Cabinet Member for a detailed response.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on then to agenda item 8D, questions on notice. There was one question submitted by members to the Combined Authority representative. Question from Councillor Christian Hogg. Councillor Ellis, would you like to respond to the question from Councillor Hogg in relation to the school closure, road closure initiative?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, and thank you, Councillor Hogg. Peterborough currently has school streets in operation outside 14 schools and nurseries, and we continue to work collaboratively to empower and enable our communities to shape their neighbourhoods in the future. We have received several requests from other schools in the city wishing to address the issues of congestion and irresponsible parking behaviours through the implementation of a school street. We are currently undertaking the relevant site surveys and risk assessments and aim to have at least a further 4 school streets in operation before the end of the summer term. Funding has been allocated from the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority to support new school streets and provide existing schemes with permanent fixed signage and camera installation in the future. To ensure the continuation of the programme or implementation of additional initiatives, it will be necessary to secure additional funding. Furthermore, any funding allocation will be subject to the Combined Authority's Single Assurance Framework, ensuring compliance with the necessary governance and accountability standards.
Thank you. Councillor Hogg, do you have a supplementary question?
Just a slight clarification. Can I just double check that the funding for the scheme comes wholly from the CPCA and that Peterborough doesn't have to contribute a percentage?
I will clarify in writing to you, but from what I've been told so far, it is a combined authority, but I will clarify in writing to you to double check.
Okay, thank you. In that case, we move then to agenda item 9, which we have deferred, and we go directly to
Item 9B, Mr. Mayor.
9B.
9B, page 485.
Which is 485 in your papers. It's a bit top heavy. If you've got paperwork, I can assure you, you wouldn't want to hit anybody with it. It's the Cabinet Roadmap to Net Zero. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, fantastic. Councillor Ellis, would you like to move the recommendations, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I am pleased to present to Council an organisational roadmap to net zero. This document sets out a pathway detailing meaningful action that we can take to reduce our organisational carbon emissions to net zero by 2030. The plan details actions that can be taken to reduce emissions from our buildings by improving energy efficiency and installing low carbon heating systems, our transport by using biodiesel or purchasing electric versions when vehicles need replacing, our lighting by continuing to install energy efficient bulbs and looking at motion activation, our waste by looking at opportunities to reuse, borrow and recycle, our procurement by introducing carbon focused policies and by supporting our staff to reduce emissions through information and education such as carbon literacy training. The steps outlined in this roadmap would reduce the Council's carbon footprint by 78% from the 2018-19 baseline. We've already reduced them by nearly 29% since the baseline year, which demonstrates that the work outlined in this plan is feasible. Adoption of this roadmap does not commit the Council to financial spend, and external sources of funding will be sought to achieve decarbonisation, with grant funding prioritised, something the team have an excellent track record in. So therefore, I would be pleased for the Council to adopt this roadmap to net zero.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Do you have a seconder?
That's me, Mr.
Councillor Jones. Do you wish to speak or do you reserve your right?
I will reserve my right because I was only going to say what Councillor Ellis has just said.
Yeah, I know that one. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Can I call upon any speakers? Thank you, Councillor Day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and a huge thanks also to officers who have worked really hard over a number of years to produce this roadmap to net zero. The roadmap states the impacts of climate change are known to disproportionately affect the most vulnerable individuals and communities. Measures to reduce carbon emissions have numerous benefits, and climate change has a striking impact on health, affecting diets, air quality, temperature, damp environments, and the list could go on. Pursuing net zero prioritises the resilience of our communities and services, supporting health outcomes, cultural assets and community cohesion. We all know that the fight to keep us close to safe limits of 1.5 degree global warming is vital. Every fraction of a degree is worth fighting for. So it is encouraging to see in this roadmap that council emissions since 2018-19 have been steadily declining, apart from a small increase in 21-22 due to return to usual activities after the pandemic. As Councillor Ellis has mentioned, as laid out in the report, this report is not seeking council funding to deliver recommendations. External grants, invest to save, invest to deliver, invest to reduce emissions model is being used. Officers and myself have been working with the CPCA alongside their Opportunity Fund on the committee to draw down funding. Ideally, it would be good if councils were given ring-fence net zero funding from central government, but we are not there yet. The development of a clear roadmap, however, will help if and when opportunities arrive. We recognise in the report that there's more work to be done around procurement, although efforts are ongoing. Overall, we should be pleased with the progress to date, and as Chair of the Climate Change and Environment Committee, where this report has been scrutinised, I ask members to endorse and adopt this roadmap to net zero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Are there any other speakers? I think we got Councillor Hogg and then Councillor Fitzgerald. No?
Well, I haven't indicated.
Well, you shouldn't have been scratching your head then, because I wouldn't know. Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Liberal Democrat Group welcomes this piece of work. We are, however, concerned that Councillor Ellis has just said that we're only 29% of the way through, and yet we're 50% of the way through in terms of time. So essentially we need to do 70% of the work in half the time. So we will be closely monitoring the progress. I understand that there is an element of, planning involved, and so that there's a bit of a lag. But I do feel that that's quite a large hill either to climb or to descend. I'm not sure which way we want to look at it. But anyway, the other thing is, on a personal note, it talks about HVO usage. Now, Peterborough Limited did a trial on this, and it was found that the price of HVO is more costly. It also reduces the miles per gallon for the vehicles because of the calorific value of HVO, and we are yet to have a go-ahead to turn over to HVO on a permanent basis. So currently, the Peterborough Limited fleet is using normal diesel. That's not particularly apparent in the document. I just want need for councillors to understand that, and then maybe we can make a decision on what finance versus carbon reduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. Did you want to say something, Councillor Fitzgerald?
If I'm being forced to, yes.
You can sit down. You're not being forced to.
What I'm about to say will cause a great deal of upset with members of a certain persuasion. I'm sick and tired of this net zero nonsense. When it's particularly talked about that it doesn't cost anything to the council, tell me how green energy and purchasing it by 2030 won't cost this council more money. Nobody's explained that to me, because it generally costs more. As Christian just pointed out, all these alternative fuels generally cost more money. I think the former Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, woke up to the fact that it was woke and wake to be talking about net zero in the timescales that we're talking about it. This 2030 is unachievable, and I said so 3 years ago, but the policy doesn't seem to have changed. There is no evidence to say we will make these targets. Now, we might be making progress, and we're all for, making efficiency savings and less carbon, but the roadmap is a road to nowhere at the moment in the timescales we have it. 2050, we might start to think it's achievable in terms of realistically not having a cost implication to the council. To say it won't is naive, Mr. Mayor. So most of the public, it's a bit like energy at home and fuel, all these tariffs. What have they done for climate stuff? They've increased the tariffs enormously and put the burden onto homeowners. So whilst in principle I don't object, I think, and again, I'm not going to vote this down. It's just one of those policies that comes forward from officers and you all agree it, as the administration. You might contribute or say something as we did, but it's woke nonsense, I'm afraid. Net zero rubbish. And I don't agree with it, but do as you will. Because when I'm in charge again, if I ever get there, we'll repeal that climate emergency as well. Because it was just a political football. So there you go. You know where I'm at. Sorry? Yeah, no, I think, to be honest, to be honest, we were in no overall control, didn't really matter, said nothing. Thanks.
All right. Have you finished, Councillor Fitzgerald?
I said thanks, sorry.
Councillor Wigan, did you
Don't ask again.
I think a lot of us, Mr Mayor, are glad that Councillor Fitzgerald won't be in charge of this council anytime soon. In July 2019, when the Council unanimously declared a climate emergency, including Councillor Fitzgerald, which was proposed by the Conservative group under then Council Leader John Holditch, we committed to get both the Council and the whole city to net zero by 2030. So that was 20 years ahead of the then government's target of 2050 and was very ambitious. So getting a 78% reduction would be a significant achievement. However, there is no detail on how to deal with the remaining 22% or when this can be achieved. The report talks about the Council's significant achievements in boosting tree planting, but then the roadmap says we can't count tree planting as a means of offsetting our carbon emissions, even when we plant trees on our own land. So that itself is a problem when calculating carbon reduction. We welcome the PIRI network. However, at the moment, it's proposed that most of the heat will come from the council's waste incinerator, and a recent BBC investigation found that producing electricity from waste burning is one of the most polluting forms of energy generation. Given this is excluded from our calculations of our carbon emissions, they will then be included in the citywide carbon reduction plan. But then that doesn't make sense when we're including the heat generated as a contributor to reduction of the council's carbon emissions. Also mentioned in the roadmap buildings. The town hall is a building with very poor insulation, expensive and largely dysfunctional heating system with a number of other issues. That's why we're in here tonight. Has this been looked at in terms of reducing our emissions? And I've always been confused as to why it's not been part of our asset review. Finally, we're looking forward to work coming forward on the citywide net zero plan. Again, initially targeted for 2030, although the local area energy plan says that a target of 2040 is more feasible. Even so, we're yet to see any progress to this. I know officers are working on it, and it will come to the Climate Change Scrutiny Committee, or whatever form that takes, next year. But this directly affects Peterborough residents, as citywide emissions includes such issues as making homes warmer and cheaper to run, and enabling people to travel around the city in a more convenient and less polluting way, and how waste is collected and processed. So we should have had our carbon reduction plan in place first, so the officers working on the local plan could clearly see what our carbon reduction ambitions are and ways in which we want to achieve them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wiggins. Councillor Elsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. People will probably be surprised to hear this, but I actually agree with Councillor Fitzgerald. No, I won't. But
no, we won't.
I have to say that I agree with pretty much everything that he said. The other thing that concerns me is that there are a number of people across the country who have an alternative opinion on carbon and the effect on global warming, and one resident from Peterborough here has sent information, very complex and comprehensive information to most councillors, and my concern is that their opinion doesn't appear, and I may be wrong, but it doesn't appear to have been given a fair voice in terms of listening to their alternative point of view when we're making these policies. And that concerns me, because if you don't listen to everybody's opinion, then how do you know that you're taking the right stance?
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other speakers? No, thank you. Councillor Jones, would you like to exercise your right to speak?
I will, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's interesting because it says in the report it's not seeking council funding to deliver the recommendations. It sets out a proposed route, shows the scope of the net zero challenge, and also just moving down ever so slightly down the report. If implemented in full, the measures outlined in this roadmap, as Councillor Ellis has eloquently put, has the potential to cut the council's carbon footprint by 70%. Now, you know, against 78% on 2018-2019 baseline. Surely to goodness it behoves us all to work towards it. It isn't going to cost us anything in the first instance. And it just, that's, you know, the comments of her just seem to know the price of everything and the value of nothing. And this is surely to goodness a worthwhile cause. You know, I don't see this as woke. There's plenty of things to woke, and I wish Donald Trump didn't have his hand up your back, Wayne. You know, this is ridiculous. I'm sorry, can we just move on, get this voted through, and work towards saving the planet rather than grandstanding in the chamber? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Ellis, did you want to sum up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would. And first of all, thank you to the councillors who have spoken tonight in support of this. It was a unanimous decision back in 2019 about declaring a climate emergency. And a reminder, what this recommendation is about the council's emissions. Yes, we do need to do more around the city-wide, and we need to lead the way by showing what we're doing as a council. And it's certainly, it's cloud cuckoo land, and I really worry. I have a 5-year-old granddaughter, 1-year-old granddaughter, and I really worry about some councillors saying that, you know, the issue of climate change isn't an issue. You just have to look at the amount of flooding we have in this country and elsewhere in the world, and we really do need to move on. The question around funding, well, there's lots of specific sources of funding that we've applied to. I could list them, but I think with the amount of time going on, I think you'd rather get on and support this. So please, for everybody's sake, support for motion so that as a city council, we are doing as much as we can to combat climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Right, is that agreed, or do we move to the vote? Yes?
Just for clarity. No, I'm not agreeing, but I don't need to vote on it.
Okay, that's agreed then. Yes? Good, right. you behave. Right. I'm going to hand over to Rachel now because it's... No?
There's no vote. That was only if there was a vote.
Right, there's no vote. No vote, don't need to hand over to Rachel. Then it's then agenda item 10 in relation to the record of executive decisions detailed on page 531 to 534 of your agenda pack, if I can find it. My God. There we go. Right. The leader will introduce this item and any questions will be answered by the leader unless he refers them to another member. I would remind councillors that they should ask questions on the decisions in the report and questions must be relevant to the decision itself. Should I feel that any preamble is unreasonably wrong, I will instruct councillors to ask their questions immediately. Can members please note that once I've moved on, questions will not be accepted from previous pages. Councillor Jones, would you please introduce the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm pleased to introduce the report and welcome any questions because, as I've said in previous council meetings, that scrutiny is a sign of a healthy democracy. So ask your questions and I'll either answer or direct it, as Mr. Mayor has already suggested. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Right then, so we start on page 531.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Mahmood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've just got a question on item A. If the leader could further clarify the benefits to this expansion of special education needs provision in Peterborough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Judge, can I jump in?
Yeah,
Councillor
please,
Mahmood,
that's what I was going to say. I'm
going to hand this very niftily over to Councillor Cole, if I may, please.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Mayor, through you. So the benefits of expanding Neengate are... It's going to form one of the ways that we go forward with SEND provision here in Peterborough. There are currently 2,752 EHC plans within Peterborough, 397 of these issued to children presenting a need with social, emotional and mental health, that is SEMH. The provision at Neengate is expanding for pupils with social, emotional and mental health issues. Providing children with SEND places in their own community is vital to ensure that those community links with their peers are maintained, that children's friendships are maintained, that their links with families and community members are also maintained. This is something that the Labour government is intending to do for all schools, and I'm proud of that fact.
Thank you, Councillor. You happy with that, Councillor Mahmood?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Imraj.
As a councillor in the ward where this school covers and having a number of schools in a close vicinity, Cabinet member advise what traffic calming measures will be taken in place to support the amount of traffic that will be going into the school and around the area? Thank you.
Thank you, Leader, and through you, Mayor. So a meeting was held with ward councillors and officers regarding potential issues with parking and transport along that road. It's well known, if you have ever travelled down that road, that there are 3 schools within that area. You've got St Thomas More, you've got John Fisher, you've got Neangate, and just round the corner you've also got another Abbots Mead, and you've got another secondary school. Traffic is a nightmare. I know that personally because my children go to a school in that area. As discussed with ward councillors, local residents are going to be informed in terms of a letter going out to them. So any disruption to residents regarding diggers and trucks coming in to expand the school is going to be well advertised in advance. Also, as ward councillors, you advised that you could discuss and meet with transport officers to ensure that any further parking measures or traffic calming measures are needed could be discussed with the relevant officers.
Okay, you happy with that? I'll move on then. Page 532. Councillor Allen, then Councillor Hogg. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I refer to item E on 532. This is disposal of the former goods shed for development into a communal food hall, which is a great outcome. I just want to know where the money's coming from. Authorise the award of grant funding to Farholt Goods Shed Limited for $1,895,000. Is this from Town's Fund? I haven't got papers in front of me, so I can't refer. So that's why I'm asking the question. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Allen, for your question. I'll pass this neatly over to Councillor Thorburn, please, for his reflections.
Thank you, Leader. For you, Mr. Mayor. The grant funding comes via Towns Fund.
Question answered. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Then we've got Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the same item, actually. Essentially, Towns Fund is giving 1.9 million or thereabouts. And we are basically charging them £250,000 for the freehold of the property. Presumably, that money will be coming out of the grant fund. But my question is, can you confirm that? But my question actually is, if in 2-3 years' time, this company, I can't remember the name of it now, something about Farshed Limited, if they sell this property at a profit, do we get any clawback? Is there something in the contract? Overage. Thank you. I defer
Jones.
to my colleague.
Councillor Jones.
Do you want to?
Thank you for the question. Overage is something I need to look into, to be honest. I like any private business, they have the opportunity to do what they will, but we have grant funding and there are community areas within that building. So I'll look into it and find out the detail and get back to you.
Okay. Councillor Rangzeb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the same item E, since we are somewhat giving this asset on a discounted price, as well as nearly £8 million grant, what assurity or what steps have we taken that this building is not going to be left unfinished like the Hilton Hotel?
Councillor Jones.
We are going through that process at the moment, so to ensure that it actually gets done and sustainable, so that them negotiations are going on at the moment. So it's coming very close to the final element of that. But we're not giving it a discount. It's 3 walls and half a roof that we're actually going to develop into something rather special on the riverfront. So it's actually a significant investment for the city and for the area.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
On the same subject, and I'm sure it's for Councillor Thorburn. So I understand the purchase price, 250,000. I understand the grant money from the Towns Fund, even though that wasn't originally in the Towns Fund funding. So some sleight of hand must have gone on there, and somebody must have approved it. But is the 1.9 million there or thereabouts repayable, or is it just a grant to a private limited company? And on what basis would we do that? Is that for regeneration? So we're giving somebody nearly £2 million, which is a private business, private company, or what is in it for the council or the public? I'm not quite seeing unless the grant's repayable.
Councillor Jones.
Me again, sorry. The grant funding for the building is for the Vine, so it's part of a community asset that will enable businesses, community groups and other things to go on there, as well as to other sites. So it's an enabler. It's not a grant as such to a private business. It's actually enabling the building to be used as a community asset.
Councillor Fitzgerald again.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. So I suggest then members might want to look up the Mem and Arts and the constitution of Farholt Goods Sheds Limited, which would determine what their purpose of business was. I understand a bit about the Vine, and obviously, but I think somebody should ask a few more questions about this. I'm not saying there's anything wrong. It's just not entirely transparent.
Any further questions? Councillor Ali.
Obviously prompted by the discussions we've just had, it's probably a question to the same Cabinet member. But do we have an existing relationship with Farholt Goods Shed Limited, and how long have we been in business with them? It seems like a sizable grant to be giving to a new relationship with a new company.
Councillor Jones.
Yes, it's a new relationship. It's reasonably young. It's not finalised yet. We're moving in that direction. This decision at the Cabinet allowed us to move to the formal stages of negotiations and conversations with a new company. It's an idea and a method of delivering on something that has been undelivered for many, many years. So we've talked about it and not delivered it. This enables us to do that. But yes, they're a new company. They're a young company, and they're set up to deliver that site.
Councillor Farouk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I'm prompted by this discussion as well. My original question on this was that, of course, with Towns funding, and the delivery has to be by March 2026, are we likely to achieve that? But looking at the whole scenario of it, and as Councillor Fitzgerald pointed out, if I was on the other side of the fence, and I've got an asset, as Councillor Rangzib also pointed out, at very discount price of 250 grand, and then I'm also given a cheque of 1.9 million, or they're about to do it up, and then I'd run it as restaurants or food hubs, and then in 5 years' time I have an asset of perhaps £5 million or £6 million. Well, this guy or these people are laughing all the way to the bank. So 2 questions. Are you sure this is a good deal for the council and taxpayer? And the second question is, and are we going to reach that town fund milestone?
Councillor Jones.
Yes, we will meet that Towns Fund milestone. It's all we've been working, all I seem to be doing at the moment is trying to meet them milestones. The asset itself, we're still coming to the final part of physically how it's all going to come together, but I'll come back to you on the detail. But the asset will be a community asset. The businesses running there will be startups, and they'll refresh on a regular basis. So it's a conduit to enable this element to actually move forward. So the most important thing is we get things moving, and this is what this cabinet agreement was all about, is to get it moving.
You okay with that answer, Councillor Farouk?
Yes, apart from one clarification, it's never going to be a community asset. It's going to be owned by a private company. But we'll leave it at that.
Councillor Asif.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I move on to F, if there's no further questions on E, regarding Opportunity Peterborough? Now that's been wound up, it's 5 subsidiaries.
We've got still another question on 532.
It's just a very brief point.
Go on.
And I know there are many members here. May I make a recommendation to the executive and officers to bring it to FSWG for a proper briefing, because it seems that people aren't up to speed as to who's who, what's what. That might be a better solution rather than discussing it here further.
Do we have agreement with that? Yes. Yes, the leader says yes. We do that then, yeah? Okay, fair enough. We'll move on then to 533 then.
May I finish my question?
Sorry.
May I finish my question,
I thought
please?
yours. Sorry,
No, it's all right.
I thought your question was 533. It's 532, is it?
Yep.
Right.
Regarding Opportunity Peterborough being wound up, who will be taking on the duties of Opportunity Peterborough, please?
Councillor Jones.
Councillor Thorburn again, please, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
The winding up of the business limited company was this decision being made at Cabinet, but the operation and the people that actually run the services of Opportunity Peterborough have come in-house in essence for a number of years now. So the service is now running as an in-house service, and the people who work for Opportunity Peterborough are now in-house.
Okay. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is on item G with the budget consultation. Obviously, in previous years, we had the online virtual simulator that boosted numbers in terms of how many people responded. Appreciate we took a different approach this year and threatened to close the Lido instead, and that got lots of responses, so I take my hat off for that one. But why didn't we do the online simulator? Just as a question. People seemed to like it before. Wondering the answer.
Councillor
Sorry, just repeat last part of your question, please, Ryland.
So the budget consultation, previously we did the online simulator where people could increase funds, decrease funds in different pots. Don't seem to have done that this year. Any reason why?
It was something we talked about, and I'm quite happy to answer this, because I was of the opinion that if we keep it going, it kind of gets embedded. But it was decided to do the other consultation. It's a moot point. I mean, the reality is that, you know, the proof is in the pudding. We had 1,400, threatened to shut the Lido, and you get a lot of responses. But, you know, no, mothball, I should say. But no, we did talk about it, and it was a moot point. Yeah, it's a good shout. Yeah.
Can I just add to that just because we didn't do it this year doesn't mean we're not going to do it next year. Next year we could end up doing a combination of both, which I think makes sense because some people, you know, prefer that way. So it was just this year we decided we're going to do it like this. But once again, we'll look at it next year.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any further questions on 532? Right, we move on. 533. No, that's it. Thank you very much. Agenda item 11, in relation to the record of combined authority decisions made since the last meeting. I will refer any questions to the relevant combined authority representative, otherwise the same rules would apply as the previous item. Members, these decisions can be found in your agenda packs 535, 558. I will take each meeting in turn, and members please refer to the title of the decision when asking the question. Right. Combined Authority Board, 13th of November to the 13th of December 24. I think it's Councillor Dennis Jones. Any questions? No? Good. Overview of scrutiny, 7th of November to the 20th of November 24. Councillor Addison Jones and Councillor Antunes. Any questions? No? Audit and Governance Committee, 8th and 28th of November. Councillor Hogg and Councillor Wiggin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarity, that I attended that meeting, as by then I had taken over from Councillor Hogg on that committee. The information on the Combined Authority website as to who attended that committee, which I believe has been used to create this document, is incorrect, and I will make sure they correct their record, but it was me in attendance.
Thank you. I thought you were going to ask yourself a question. Okay. Okay. Then let's move then to Environment and Sustainable Communities Committee, the 11th of December 2024, and that's Councillor Nicola Day. Okay. And then Investment Committee, 16th of December 2024, and Councillor Mohammed Jamil. Okay then. We then move to motions on notice. We have received one motion on notice from Councillor Nicola Day. Councillor Day, would you like to move your motion as set out in the agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, the internationally agreed target of keeping long-term average global temperatures below 1.5 is in danger of being missed. Some of those in power seem to have no real interest in achieving this, delaying everything until 2050, despite the fact that climate scientists warn that there is an acceleration of global warming. This is evidenced by the IPCC, PCC reports, the UN and COP as well. We are already witness to floods, heat waves, fires, both in our own countries and elsewhere. It's a shame that we've heard some of the regressive comments tonight. This will be really concerning to young people in our city. As you know, these young people face a really harsh, stark future. We already know what's happening with climate change. And even if you argue that it's not true, and in the Green Party we don't argue with climate denialists, but even if you argue it's not true, having a greener, cleaner, healthier society with no air pollution is surely the best way to go, and a green infrastructure and a green economy. We present this motion to ask the Council to support the Climate and Nature Bill, which has its second reading on the 24th of January, this Friday. This bill, which was written by scientists, experts and campaigners, by Caroline Lucas initially in September 2020, the bill aims to align current UK government policy with the need to halt and reverse nature loss by 2030 and secure a net zero and nature positive future by 2030. This would align with our own Council's net zero 2030 ambitions. We often focus on net zero, but not on nature. This bill intertwines both and focuses on working in a joined-up way. It also ensures no community is left behind in a just transition, another policy our Council has adopted. Our present economy needs a shift to recognise the exploitation of nature and our planetary limits. This motion also recognises and reaffirms the Peterborough ambitions to become net zero by 2030. I'm very passionate about this. I could speak for a long time. Members, I ask you to support this motion, particularly for our young people and the future generations. They will not forgive you if we are not doing our utmost to tackle this current crisis. This motion falls on the right side of history. Please make sure you do the same. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ellis, would you second the motion and either speak now or reserve your right?
Sorry, there's an update on that. It's Councillor Wiggins that's going to be seconding the motion.
It's changed now, has it?
Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
Fair enough. It's up to you then, Councillor Wiggins. You know what I was going to say anyway.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm happy to second the motion and I reserve my right to speak.
Okay, fair enough. Can I call upon any speakers then? Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And sorry, a weekend is a long time in politics. After looking more carefully at things, I did decide not to second this, and I will tell you the reasons why now. The Labour group notes the urgency of climate and nature crisis, and we reaffirm the Council's declaration of a climate emergency on the 24th of July 2019 and welcome the work done to help support Peterborough towards becoming a net zero carbon city. We agree that all needs to be done for both climate change and nature. However, we do not support the Climate and Nature Private Members Bill. Firstly, there are some particularly difficult clauses in the bill which essentially set up a non-elected assembly with the power to overrule Parliament on some climate matters, which we feel would be undemocratic. Secondly, Labour government policies already align with and advance the goals of the proposed Climate and Nature Bill, making additional legislation unnecessary at this time. The Labour government is taking decisive steps to tackle the climate crisis and restore nature, including removing the ban on onshore wind, approving enough solar energy projects to power hundreds of thousands of homes and securing 131 new renewable electricity projects across Britain, establishing Great British Energy, a publicly owned company to own, manage and operate clean power projects, delivering clean power by 2030 by doubling onshore wind, tripling solar power and quadrupling offshore wind in partnership with private sector investment, invested £6.6 billion to upgrade the energy efficiency of 5 million homes through a warm homes plan, and expanded nature-rich habitats, planting millions of trees, creating new woodlands, and improving access to nature for all. We therefore believe Labour's comprehensive policies already address the crisis effectively, offering leadership on climate and nature without the need for a separate climate and nature bill. And with the help of our two MPs for Peterborough and the combined authority, we will continue to push for continuing action on climate change. But we do not support this motion, as we cannot support the bill for the reasons I've just outlined. But we do certainly support action on climate change.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Allen.
Again, Mr Mayor, forced me, because Councillor Walsh was due to speak on this. In fact, she was due to speak against it, so I will as well, but just address some of the remarks. It may have been that we voted through a climate emergency 2019, but the government also changed its mind on policy, I'm talking about the last government, as to the pace and the extent, and I'm not going to lay myself at the foot of the cross of climate change without knowing all the implications. So we would all agree we need to do the best that we can for our planet, our citizens, particularly where we live, our children, grandchildren, etc. But it gets to the stage where it becomes obsessive, and we can't support this either because of the bill. I think Councillor Ellis articulated many of the reasons why, in terms of we don't understand some of it, and how can we, the UK, take responsibility for UK's overseas emissions and ecological footprints? Many of those territories are out of our control. And if you look at carbon and the climate change issues in the UK, we're a very small, tiny little percentage. There are people far worse in the world, and you should look to China and overseas before you start pointing fingers here in the UK. Now, look, we can all disagree, and that's the nature of democracy. Some people feel strongly about this, and some won't. Which is why, incidentally, the Green Party only have 4 MPs in Parliament, because it is not a majority view. They are not in the mainstream view of the public on this issue. And if you ask most members of the public, they won't agree to things that don't make sense or affect their pocket. And, you know, we are very sound, sensible people. Hence, we did the climate change emergency motion in 2019. But just like Rishi Sunak and the government, we thought again, and we don't entirely agree with the principle of doing it. Because I look back and thought, what is the emergency? What has got worse? In actual fact, I hear it's got better for us in Peterborough. So those are my remarks explaining those earlier remarks from me. So I don't think the group, they can vote as they like, I think, from memory. We don't very often impose the whip. There is no such thing, really, although Ryland does exist. But, you know, people can do as they please. But I thought I'd speak because Councillor Walsh felt quite strongly about it. So we won't be supporting this motion from Councillor Day, and I'm sorry about that, Councillor Day. It's just one of those things.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know Councillor Day is very passionate about this subject, and indeed the Green Group had it as their main platform. I don't think many of us disagree with the challenge of climate. Indeed, will we call it a crisis or a problem? I'm not drill, baby, drill, but I do think it's step by step to achieve an outcome, and I will be supporting the Conservative perspective that we should be looking at a target of 2050. So on this bill, I will have to abstain. Thank you.
Councillor Cole. I was told you wanted to speak, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I can't vote for this motion. I will be abstaining. We can agree that climate and nature crisis is growing ever more urgent. I welcome the immediate steps that the government has already taken towards getting us back on track. And I'm proud to support the government's Green Prosperity Plan and its mission to deliver clean power by 2030. This includes establishing a national wealth fund and other incentives to ensure that the private sector can support our desire to improve our nature and access to nature. I support the plans to take action to meet the Environment Act targets for nature recovery, and I believe we should work with civil society, communities and businesses to restore and protect our natural world. I cannot support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Are there any other speakers? Councillor?
Yeah, just something I'd like to point out, because I think a few people have mentioned maybe not knowing enough about the subject to comment. I think we can all agree that it is a very important subject, and just something I think we've had various emails to all of us as councillors from the council saying that they run a very good carbon literacy course, which I have attended, and it is very informative. So I would recommend, if you would like to be better educated on it, that you perhaps attend the course.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Right, so I think it's back to you, Councillor Wiggin. Do you want to sum up?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I'd absolutely like to endorse what Councillor Shahid just said. Recommend everyone to do the carbon literacy training. There are dates available now. As we've already discussed today, we welcome the work done by this council on our net zero roadmap, and we look forward to receiving our citywide action plan sometime this year for review to see how we're going to bring the whole city to net zero. But we can't, in Peterborough, set the policy for the whole country, but we can ask our MPs to do that for us. The Climate and Nature Bill is an ambitious science-led plan for carbon reduction and nature restoration, ensuring climate and nature policy are given equal priority in legislation, not diminishing the importance of urgency of either issue and emphasising their interconnectedness. It goes further than the existing Environment Act, which relies on outdated science, some of which dates back to 2008. Councillor Day has already mentioned that the target of 2050 is far too distant a goal. By using up-to-date scientific research to set more short-term targets to limit warming alongside a carbon budgeting system with clear strategy on how to get there, we've got a better chance of doing everything we can as the UK to do our bit to support our planet. There is greater than 99% consensus from scientists that climate change is human-caused. If you want, I can send you the article that goes through that information in 2001 from Mark Linus et al. But we were all sent an article by one of the approximately 30 scientists that disagree. If you think 30 is the 1%, then that's a lot of scientists all agreeing on what we have done to our planet. Councillor Fitzgerald said that Rishi Sunak and his government changed policy on climate change, but I seem to remember that that government was overwhelmingly booted out by the public last year. As Councillor Ellis says, Labour has strong policies on climate and nature. The Lib Dems were Green before the Green Party existed, and if we had a fair voting system in this country, the Green Party would have far more MPs. But If, as Councillor Ellis says, the Labour government was going far enough on climate and nature, why would 80 of its own MPs support this bill, including some elected in last year's general election? The bill is also supported by members across the House: Lib Dems, Greens, Plaid, SNP, Alliance, SDLP, Independents, Conservatives, even the DUP. Also supported by Labour mayors, including Angie Burnham and Sadiq Khan. Yes, to give him his full title, Sir Sadiq Khan. Thank you, Councillor Hogg. So, with all of those in support, why can't our MPs join that list as well? That's what we're calling for Andrew Pakes and Sam Carling to do, to support this bill on Friday. It's this week, that's why we brought it to this council meeting, and to give even more attention in Parliament to the climate emergency, such as we have declared, and to our environment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Day, would you like to now sum up on the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to say anything further. I think we should move to the vote. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, Rachel, I think it's over to you, isn't it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're now voting to support the Climate and Nature Bill motion from Councillor Day. We are using the electronic voting, so all those in favour, it's the green button. Against is the red button. To abstain is the yellow button. If you have an issue, can you raise your hand? Do not push the microphone button. The vote, I'm looking over the back there, is now live. Has everybody voted? There's 2 members left. I don't know who they are though, because I'm trying to look at the back of the room. Sorry.
If the mic's supposed to be flashing.
Do we know? Has everybody else voted? We have it on the screen. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's 18 in favour, that's 22 abstentions and 15 against. Therefore, this is carried. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, members. We'll move on then to item 13 and reports to council. 13A is the draft calendar of meetings. And Councillor Jamil, would you therefore like to move the recommendations for the draft calendar of the meetings?
I certainly would. I see people are putting their laptops away already, so I propose to recommend, as per the recommendation set out at 13A for the draft calendar of meetings.
Are we going to agree this, Councillor Hogg?
Sorry, I'm not going to get a groan for this. I've looked at the calendar and it seems to have omitted the party conference season quite spectacularly. I think there are a number of meetings that clash with Conservative, Labour, Liberal Democrat and Green Party conferences. So I would ask if it could be maybe tweaked a little bit to accommodate.
Any other speakers? May I also say, being a father with young children, could we please avoid term dates? For those, all of us who have young children, it is most inconvenient if we can't spend time with our children. Yeah, school term holiday dates, half-term dates. Okay, so what are you actually asking then, Councillor?
I'm just saying that could those items on the calendar that clash with, because normally the calendar actually has the dates of the conferences on. I feel that it's a slight omission, but it's something that needs to be addressed nonetheless. I don't know if that means it has to be taken away to be brought back again, or whether or not we can just give officers delegation to be able to make those changes.
So it's a draft.
Okay, so
it'll come back in May.
Just come back in May. Yeah,
that's okay.
It's okay. It's just a draft. Officers have said they'll look at it again, and we'll come back in May. Yeah. Everybody happy with that then? Let's go forward now. I'd like to exercise my discretion as Mayor and invite Councillor Cole to update Council on the Children's Improvement Plan, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through you. I'm pleased to be able to share that the Children's Improvement Board met on the 11th of December, and I can now share key updates on improvement work from across the service. As part of the update from the Executive Director for Children's Services, the Board heard that the SEND Accelerated Progress Plan review has taken place with colleagues from the Department for Education. The feedback from this was positive, although they recognised that there were areas that require further improvement. I look forward to being able to share more detailed feedback once the formal letter is received. The development of the multi-agency safeguarding hub is progressing, and the Board heard that there is now a permanent workforce in the MASH, which is creating stability. The Board is pleased to note the significant progress in terms of the physical delivery of the MASH and noted the improvements are ongoing in other areas. We are also working with Leeds City Council as part of a sector-led improvement partnership, and this has extended into the MASH. As members will be aware, Ofsted is a standing item at the Improvement Board and an opportunity for board members to have oversight of the progress being made against the improvement plan for the leaders to highlight any areas of risk. Ofsted this week have visited Peterborough's MASH, and as part of their inspections following on from the ILAC inspection back in 2022. I'm pleased to say that the feedback comments are positive, and I look forward to sharing this with you and the feedback letter in due course. Improvements against the plan are progressing, and whilst there are still some staffing challenges which are impacting the pace of progress, plans are in place to increase oversight of the children's workforce strategy with the creation of a Children's Workforce Board from January 2025. I shared with the Board that I recently attended the launch of the Mockingbird model, which is an approach designed to strengthen the bonds between children, young people and foster families. The Mockingbird model represents our commitment to foster care by putting relationships and community at the forefront, creating a community where everybody feels valued, cared for and understood. I'm excited to see the positive impact this will have on children's lives, young people's lives and the carers alike. I'm also pleased to be able to share the progress of our Care Leavers Apprenticeship programme. So far, 3 posts in the Council's Customer Centre have been identified for care leavers. This is a really positive step and demonstrates our commitment to corporate parenting here in Peterborough. We will shortly be opening our new hub for care leavers and Home for Our House project, the only one of its kind in East of England. And finally, I can advise the Chamber that Ofsted have completed their monitoring visit, and I look forward and I'm very proud of the progress that has been made to date.
Thank you, Councillor Cole, and thanks for the update. I'm going to do it again, I'm afraid, members. I've got to exercise my discretion as Mayor and accept this late item due to the changes in political group makeup that occurred following the publication of the agenda. Councillor Mohammed Jamil, would you therefore like to move the recommendations in the report regarding political balance and allocation of committee seats.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In light of Councillor John Howard moving back to his natural home, as he called it, I would move the late report on the recommendation of political balance and the allocation of committee seats.
And Councillor Jones, will you second the recommendation and either speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
I'm fine with it. I'll second it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any? Is it agreed? Thank you very much. Then that's agreed. I'm going to hand over to, well, that's agreed. So I wish you all a safe journey home, I'm pleased to say. Use an electric car so you can do something about the... Go on.
Mr. Mayor, before we all go, I just wanted to say thank you very much to the Democratic Services team for the hard work that they put in. The setting up the room tonight, they didn't have the same amount of time that they had anticipated, and so they've worked very hard today. There's been a couple of little tweaks that need changing, but I'm sure that they will be incorporated for the next time we meet.
Let's hope there's never a bloody next time.